5 years ago, my former colleague at the University of History in Platinum, Indiana, dropped out of college in favor of stranger studies. Following his months-long descent from his scholarly work in order to make time for increasingly archaic and frankly worthless pastimes, Kelton Haven, my colleague, made the personal announcement to myself alone that he would be leaving Platinum and returning to his hometown, someplace far north of Platinum, but well within the bounds of Indiana nonetheless. Having much concern for his well-being at large, I questioned his motivations. Furtively, thoroughly, he explained that he was pursuing the opportunities that awaited him in his town of old. More specifically, he ascertained to me that his motivation did indeed lie in the secrets that were inexplicably buried in the rural Midwestern town of Nanatuska. He left with his dubiously acquired books on a rainy day, and as he departed, I stood at the foot of the university's impressive front spire, able to easily see the vast concrete parking space. There came a brilliantly influential flash of lightning, brighter than any I have ever seen. Presently, I was blinded only for a moment, but when my eyesight returned to me, I could have sworn that Kelton's navy blue car was thrice farther away from my vantage point than it should have been. This, though, I passed off as a mere hallucination of a worried mind. I gave little thought to Kelton Haven in the preceding months. But soon enough, my attention was drawn back to his strange behavior. One day, I sternly remembered one of his most capricious peculiarities. It had appeared unexpectedly, catching me off guard and shocking me to the core. In our shared dorm, not everything could be kept secret at all times, which occasionally included badly timed glimpses of the other's lack of clothing. In one such circumstance, when I had arrived back to the dormitory after an extended day of grocery shopping as well as acquiring specific textbooks, I stepped back into our dorm, where immediately I saw the end of the hall. In the joined living room and kitchen, Kelton was standing bare-chested over a table, looking over one of his denser books. At my sudden intrusion, he spun around quickly, allowing me an unobstructed view of the simple yet all-consuming black tattoo spanning from his lower chest to his upper belly. Its form I can hardly describe, as it was composed of such unusual patterns which somehow could not be accurately categorized as simple or complex. It was an enigma, out of place and shockingly out of character for Kelton. Why would he blemish his body with such a blasphemous thing? This question burned in my mind for close to 3 years. Until finally, I received an unexpected letter from an old friend in the mail. As expected, the sender had been Kelton Haven. This strange medium of communication fit with his recent erratic demeanor, as there were many easier means available, including the lightning-fast utilization of any computer. And he wrote in such a bizarrely foreign script, barely intelligible as English, that I admit I had to reread this letter several times simply to make any sense of it. Additionally, there were numerous inconsistencies in the spelling and the grammar of his letter, as if the grammatical rules and dialect from another language were instinctively rooted in his brain and actively interfering with his comprehension of English. This letter is word for word, mistakes included, as follows. December 10, 2014. My friend dear Bryce Cunning, bringing to you, I give invitations for you to come to my old town, Nanatusa. Discussions heavy will flow for us to relearn those things I quit, for whom my formal education years ago life, to come you to Nanatusa residential. Aside from the unusual English, if it can even be labeled as such, I took notice that the date of the letter was several weeks late. The day of its receipt was January 7th, nearly a month delayed. If anything, this lateness inspired me with more passion to pay a visit to my old colleague, especially considering that his hopelessly broken English shined light on his growing instability, possibly even hinting at his failure to care for himself. Additionally, I knew the nearest place of care for the mentally insane in Nanatusa was dozens of miles away in Helensville, a place with an especially bad reputation when it came to crucial details, such as sanitation and overall health of its patients. I settled on the decision to make the hours-long drive to Nanatuska, even if only to check up on my former colleague's collapsing mental state. The day I departed from my recently acquired modest residential home, a storm was brewing on the horizon, offering threats of blizzard and relentlessly to boot. Weather forecasts had already predicted snowfall possibly reaching up to 2 feet or more, and I didn't care to be caught in such a catastrophe before beginning my upstate journey to Nanatuska. Unfortunately, I was not faced with much fortune. The longer I drove as hours passed, it became clear that the storm was scattered far north, originating from someplace in mid-Michigan and forming a swell in the sky that would likely not disperse until it had released its load and its fury upon a fair portion of northern Indiana. Give me a figurative jolt now and then occasionally uncannily bright flashes of lightning towards Nanatuska, though the storm was not to fall until much later. Luckily, I arrived at Kelton's residence shortly before the storm started. Unluckily, I found the place vacant of all signs of life. Snow outside of his home, piled a mere few inches in depth, reveal no recent passage of human footsteps, and all lights inside were dim dishearteningly. This evident vacancy sparked my concern, as anything could have happened in the weeks during which the letter was on its way to my home. I powered up the creaky front steps and knocked on the door, praying for a second that perhaps Kelton was just asleep and was unharmed. No response ever came. However, I found it prudent to try the knob. The door swung open effortlessly, and immediately I was greeted with the pungent odor of paper and leather. Stepping inside, I groped on the wall for a light switch and flipped it, bathing the room in light. My jaw was agape instantly. Scattered around the room haphazardly were hundreds of moth-eaten papers torn directly from Kelton's ancient books, displaying writings in unintelligible scripts and drawings of eerie beings with lanky bodies, slim legs, and wide skulls, with no obvious facial orifices or of lights in the black epens passing of the sky, or of unnatural shapes descending from the skies whilst engulfed by a brilliant glow of orange, cayenne, or white. The longer I explored this papery labyrinth, the more I felt growing sense of unease as it slowly dawned upon me with the chills running up and down my spine that I did not belong here. Looking extensively upon the detailed drawings and seeing the increasingly unearthly monstrosities painted upon them, I became increasingly aware of a mentally gnawing sensation, almost as if my mind were being violated by a vile sort of energy. Then, with one futile glance, I recognized a recent handwritten note on the back of the door I had just opened to make my entry. January 5th, 2015. Now leave. They are not our friends. The moment my mind finished dreadfully processing that message, blinding light swallowed me from all windows, accompanied by an immense mechanical warmth and deafening roar of machinery. The room pulsed rhythmically as if shaken by a colossal engine, and every single thing present in that room violently shook or toppled about. If it wasn't flung inexplicably across the room or launched into the ceiling, my heart began to race immediately, and even my blinded eyesight, I managed to race through the open doorway and over to the ground wet with flash-melted snow. I climbed into my car, slamming the door with enough force to form a minuscule crack in the window. Light still engulfed everything, and I became astoundingly aware of the vaguely humanoid shapes descending from the sky. In the sheer madness of the situation, with unnatural vigor, I rapidly pulled out of the driveway and hurried into the back road, racing, determined to escape from these aerial nightmares. As soon as I hit the roads, the light diminished completely, but I was still blinded, this time by the blistering snow falling at an undeniably blizzardly rate. I could not see even as I guided my car through this empty back road, but I realized that I must have made a wrong turn when I mistakenly arrived at a dead end surrounded on all sides by dense forest trees, curiously lacking layered snow. Moments before I was capable of swerving the car around and continuing my escape, the ominously engulfant light returned and swallowed me whole. The car rumbled as it abandoned the damp ground in favor of greeting the hot air, and even the trees surrounding me reacted by painstakingly leaning away from the intruding alien light. My mind was racked, horrified as hands tripped with 6 wiry things clamped to every window of the car, numbering in the dozens until finally they parted ways in the middle of the windshield to reveal a single disturbing culmination of everything deemed unholy by mankind, and certainly a portion of the animal kingdom. The voices I heard from unexplained sources in that fading moment, they spoke in a horrid Creole of English and something that did not belong to our earth. What can possibly communicate in such a grueling manner? What occurred between that and my awakening in my car in the driveway of my disturbingly snowless platinum home is a mystery to me. I woke up with the feeling that a minimal period of time had passed, perhaps only a number of minutes or even seconds. Yet, the surroundings suggested otherwise. Now it was dawn, and the sun was shining weak warmth upon the cold environment. As I said, my home was lacking snow. The premise of the neighborhood homes were not. And, in fact, snow was piled 3 feet high at the very least. That, though, is not the most jarring factor. Strangest of all is the fact that I woke up shirtless, lying on the back seat of my car, with a stinging sensation raging from my lower chest to my upper belly. I looked down. I glimpsed with the greatest horror I have ever felt in my life a black tattoo, identical to the one which Kelton Haven had received 5 years prior. In addition to that, though to a lesser extent, was quiet. Dim despair to look more into things that Kelton had studied so profusely. Of course, that was shrouded by my innate horror. As for this documentation, I write it for the sole purpose of making my story before it's too late. For fear that my own mind might be commencing to slip. At the same time, one can only wonder what lies beyond our atmosphere. Who may be observing from the heavens above? And where those who go missing but are never found disappear to? That pondering is what leads me to believe that my stability is limited in the near future, and that those things that I met not be provoked any further. I hope you ghouls enjoyed this creepypasta. I really liked it, and aliens, many of you know, creep me out the most. I am so terrified of aliens. I think I will always be terrified of aliens, and this just kind of gave me the creeps. But I really liked it, and I hope you ghouls did too. Secret word. I guess we're doing this. I haven't done secret words in like years. I don't know why all of a sudden I want to bring them back, but I do. And the secret word will be zap. You know how like aliens, zap, zap, pow, pow. Just put it in your comments somehow. I like seeing how creative you ghouls get with like sticking the secret word into things, making them puns, or just putting them in there. I really like it. It makes my day. So yeah, as always, ghouls, the last video will be on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen, as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.